Okay, let's start with the Yanyin CANON. This is in the $300 to $400 range. This is the box, pretty much. Open it up. You have a set that's got a very nice cable. I'm not really into cables, but this just feels very strong and very sturdy. It doesn't have any rubber on the ear hooks. The IEMs themselves are very nice and very clean. There's 3 dip switches on the back, which I don't use those a lot, but the graph for these 3, which I'll put up either now or when I do the mini review that follows this, have a radical impact on the treble. It's like listening to 3 different sets, which is, I think, the point of having dip switches, which oftentimes don't really have, it's more of a subtle effect. They actually did a good job with this. I like this. I think it fits most libraries. I'll talk about the pluses and minuses of it. Nice set. That is the Canon. Move that over. Next set is the TRN BAX. This I am actually looking at because I'm not familiar with anything. It says it took 20 months for development, loaded with stunning electrostatic technology. This is a set. It's quite weighty. It's metal. Looks like it's open back. I don't know if that's real or not. You can see them right there. I'll put up a graph for this as well. Don't really have a strong opinion of this. I don't think it's bad. I'll talk about this more when I actually do the video. I don't have any. The Canon is easy to say that's really good and competes. The BAX is a little bit different. This is the Deerfield. This is the box. It's pretty simple. Looks like something a rapper would wear, and I'm actually cool with that because it looks quite good. Like this GoPro won't do it justice, but I think it looks nice. It's a metal shell. I believe it's got like a 6.8 dynamic driver, so it's a little smaller than what is common, like the 10 millimeters. It's got an emphasis in the mid bass that's maybe going to be off-putting for some, and also a little a little spike, I think around 5 kilohertz. Stimulating area for a lot of people. The 5K could easily be pulled down and then enjoy the beauty of the bling. I think the mid bass is, even for a person that loves bass, I think it's a little exaggerated. I may or may not talk about this when I do short impressions. I think I just kind of gave them. Next set, I might put a different video because I did a full unboxing for this quite a while ago. This is probably one of the most beautiful sets that I've ever seen. It's called the Kinera URD. The way that they did the shells on this is just kind of crazy. Let me see if I can get this back out of here. This is a beautiful set. I love this. I'm from Hawaii, and this whole area is decorated Hawaiian, and this is just, you throw a turtle on this, and then it just looks absolutely stunning. They said they did some kind of 6-layer blah 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 that companies say that is something special, but I kind of believe it with this one because this is a stunner. I'll talk about this when I do my impressions. I like this tuning actually. I think it's for people that are sensitive to too much treble. However, it's not rolled off. It's on the more relaxed side as far as the tuning goes. Let me go ahead and put this plastic back on there. You don't need to see that. We'll let that go, and I'll go ahead and give some impressions on these sets. Okay, let's start out with the Yanyin CANON. You're looking at the frequency response. You can notice, we'll go ahead and switch over to focusing on the treble. You have radically different profiles from about 4K and beyond. So you've got quite an energetic set late in the treble. You've got another one that's got kind of a dip in the upper mids to the treble. Let me go ahead and compress that for a second. Yeah, these are all very different. The bass is slightly different. They all have the same glide. This is being lined up at 1 kilohertz, of course, but they've all got basically the same kind of trajectory. Sub-bass dominant, mid-bass glide, and correcting themselves essentially around the ear gain region. And then they all seem to share a peak around 4K, and then beyond that they seem to be slightly different. Because you've got multiple tuning profiles, something is probably going to be appropriate for different things in your library, whether it's classical music or hip hop or rock and roll. I found that for my own personal enjoyment. Let me see if I can quiet this and this and this. Dip 1, which I believe is, if you're looking at it, the left side dip switch up and the other one's down, or vice versa. I like this. It treats, the bass is good. It treats stuff like Big Boy Kill Jill with proper energy. It takes care of Black Sabbath's Massive Reality in a way that I think when I was A and Bing with the Kinera URD, which I'll talk about it by itself, I thought it just sounded a little bit cleaner across the mids. I thought that listening to something like Dire Straits, checking the mid bass sounds ideal for me in this configuration, though the switches don't really change the bass that much. It's really a treble. Those switches are all impacting the treble, really. And in dip switch 1, I found everything to actually sound quite good. I like the cymbal strikes in Led Zeppelin. I like the piano in Elton John. I was very surprised that this set didn't get more love when it first came out. This is kind of a phenomenon related to sellers and close relationships, or closer than others relationships with certain influencers who put forth items that they carry, whereas something like the Yanyin CANON mostly comes out of maybe Penon and maybe Hi-Fi Go. I just didn't see a lot of hype for it, and I didn't get a lot of questions for it. It's very unique how the hobby is very tribal in a way. Do you know what I mean? Some channels you see people say, yeah, you're my favorite reviewer, more of this and that. And then on another channel that's dedicated to the same hobby, you don't see any of the same people, and they're asking totally different things. It's very much like influencers are brands, like a Nike or Adidas or Puma, and people gravitate towards the brand and love everything that that brand does. I mean, influencers. So when a company doesn't have the exposure that something like Moondrop or Thea Audio has, they're going to sometimes suffer a little bit. So there's people asking me a lot about the Canon, saying, how is it? Because there's not a lot out there, particularly on YouTube. I think that cymbal strikes sound good. I think that if you play around with the switches, you might find something that, again, we got to go back to this for just a second. You're going to find something in this multiple configuration that appeals to you, and it very much is likely it's not the same thing that I like, but you have very different options, and the amount of energy that you're giving to harmonics, or called overtones, for cymbals, electric guitars, vocal harmonics are all being treated different. Some people like more energy up top, some people like less, and they like this little cave after 4K. I actually kind of like this tuning as well. So there's something there for everybody. The build quality is fantastic. It looks beautiful in the hand. It feels quite good. The cable that comes with it is of great quality. I consider it in its price range, which is $350, roughly around there, I believe. I think it is the set to beat if you're looking for a hybrid, a dynamic driver. Dip switches are something that maybe is not appealing to you because you've seen things like this kind of similar, and then similar, and then similar, and then it kind of carries it all the way off. So you're looking at, it's almost like volume adjustments, these switches. And a lot of people are like, okay, screw this. I'm not going to squint my eyes and use a pin to get minimal results. This is going to do different for you. So its sound quality is competitive in its price range. The cable's quite nice. The range of tuning that you can get simply by flicking a switch is legitimately quite wide. It's very, very different the way that this is being taken care of. So I recommend it. It's the first video of these sets because it's the one that I enjoy the most. I'm going to do Hybrid Wars. Yeah, that's going to happen. And this is going to go in it. It's going to go in it against the T, against the Dusk, and any other sets that you might want to recommend. So if you've got a hybrid that's between, let's say, $200 and $500 and you want to see it in a war with Spidergraph and all that stuff, let me know, because this is definitely a candidate for something like that. It doesn't go wrong anywhere for me. I find the bass to be sufficient. I don't find it to be overwhelming. In certain profiles, vocals can be a little intense, but I got the option to switch that profile with a dip switch. And it actually is fun for maybe the first time. So that's the Yanyin CANON. Gets the rec, and it's going to go into Hybrid Wars. And that's the Canon. Here's a video for the Kinera URD. It is a Tribrid 2 Sony EST. I think they only come in pairs. So you get 2 or 4 or 6. 2 dynamic drivers in a coaxial alignment, and then a single balanced armature. The graph is indicating nothing but possibly and probably a relaxed type tuning. It's almost leaning towards what we'd call warm. Tilted the other way, we'd call it bright, with an emphasis in the treble. This would be a relatively warm set because it's got a kind of tight mid bass, tighter than my target. It's not really, that's not an issue in any of the listening that I've had. The low frequency on this set is interesting. Listening to the bass drop on Killjill, it's a triple drop. I thought it sounded emphatic, is the way it's supposed to be, but a few seconds later the bass just comes in and it sounded good, but it sounded notably a little less enjoyable than the bass drop. I thought the bass drop sounded great, and then same track, another instrument, a little bit less so. Get to Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, drummer and a bassist going at it at the same time. Track is called Sweet Leaf, and it's around 2-minute and 36-second timestamp for about 25 to 35 seconds. That sounded not as much as I would like it. Listening to this casually, I enjoyed all of that. When I sit down to do reviews and I'm writing notes because I'm trying to find things that I can pick out that might be found by others later, and then they can say, oh, he's got a good ear, or I understand what he's talking about because he uses a specific track. To my ear, it does the low frequency drops and the impact fine. When I listen to a 4-string bass guitar, especially busy stuff, it sounds a little more like a set that would be great for just enjoying and not really something that critical evaluation is. I'm an opinion giver, so we sometimes think a little bit too much about ourselves. We do have impact, but this is a good set. Wrecking it at 650, knowing that it's got non-ideal low frequency, and the mids are decent. The treble is appealing because it's kind of relaxing, but not at the expense of the authenticity of guitar solos, cymbal strikes, vocals. The upper harmonics sound fine. The only ding that I have on this set that I'm pointing out is really the bass guitar, especially when it's busy. The overall relaxed tuning of this, combined with a lot of low frequency energy going on at the same time, seems to put this into the less than ideal light. And this is the box number 2 out of the 4. So I like it, but at its price, there's things that are very competitive with it. And if you're somebody that's really, you open the box, you check your favorite tracks, you don't have a relaxed mode, really. You go right to, is this thing awesome? Is this good? And then once you check and all the boxes are checked, then you switch into relax mode. But if that doesn't happen correctly, you can't get to the next step. This might be a set to watch out for. It might not check all the boxes before you say, okay, this is good enough. I'm going to just sit back and enjoy this now. I did the opposite. I just sat back and enjoyed it, and then I sit down to do a video, take notes, and then, oh wow. Like the Meze headphones. For a sofa set, way too expensive, but I could get how some people liked it. Sitting down and evaluating things, the Empyrean, it all fell to pieces. This didn't fall to pieces, but it was a very different experience being casual, you know, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good, and then listening to the cymbal strikes, listening to, and there you go again, you say, you want your freedom, Stevie Nicks, and all those little things that I try to focus on when I do a review. That's when it became less impressive. Not to say it's not good, but if you are somebody that pulls it out, opens track, this track, that track, this track, and that track, and each one serves a specific purpose: to check the stage, to check vocal, the energy, is it forward, to check the low frequency, to sound like it's bloated, bleeding, or slow. This might not be the set for you to grab, my opinion. And these are all just opinions. So that's Kinera URD. Good set. Definitely for the casual listener. Definitely for the casual listener. Okay, this is the TRN BAX. This is a tribrid, I believe. Magnetostatic and dynamic and balanced armature. So yeah, it's technically a tribrid. You're looking at the graph right now. You're noticing that it's got some energy. It's got a 5K that's kind of up there. It's followed by this cut. These cuts are really not that much of a problem, so much as they're not interfering with anything other than upper harmonics, which is mostly what happens in that frequency. It can sometimes calm down the intensity of things like cymbal strikes and vocals and guitar solos without taking away the what sounds like authenticity. Like that sounds accurate, but it's not bothering me or making me tired like that other set. Sometimes these are actually really good. The issue that I have with this set is that the treble always seems to be front and center. And I didn't think that about the tuning. Let's check that again, because that's almost pretty much my graph. It tails up. So I didn't look at this graph and think really anything other than it's got that cut. I'm going to listen for that, not in a bad way, but see if it's got the relaxed chill mode. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. Mick Jagger, does that sound nice, like on the traily-ish or not? In that sense, I thought it passed. Listening to Big Boy Kill Jill, impact was okay. It was preceded by Hatsune Miku's Vocaloid, which is a computer-generated female voice, being fairly intense. So the set is leaning towards the treble at all times, and that cut that can sometimes aid in taking away some of the intensity, the fatigue, didn't actually do that with this set. It actually did sound quite intense. Reach to turn the volume down. Remember that I'm staying at 77 dB before I do any evaluation, so just leave it alone. But that urge to lean forward and turn stuff down came about with the backs. I can see some people liking this, especially people that like the Blessing 2 or stuff that has kind of energy. Not so much punch, not so much musicality, my music library, but energy. Crisp and clear. I think it does that. It does cymbal strikes well. It does the mid bass on Sultans of Swing about as, again, I call it steel focus. So even though it sounds like it's going fine, the guitar and Mark Knopfler are clearly really dominating the replay a little bit more than I'm used to, or the sets that I've reviewed recently. So I think the Bax has got an audience, and I think that audience is probably people that like sets like the Blessing 2 and stuff that has energy like that in the treble. Kind of sharp, it's kind of intense, it's kind of front and center. If you listen to a lot of female vocals, I'm imagining stuff like K-pop and others. If you lean towards EDM, trip hop, rock and roll, this might be, I'm not sure. So I wouldn't wreck it. Proceed, check out other reviews. It doesn't sound wrong. It sounds treble dominant, even though the graph kind of indicates that, but to the ear it sounds more so. This is getting a lot more feature than this is, though this is not an atypical profile by any means. But it does sound like it's leaning on the treble, and everybody knows that I go for something a little warmer or a little more balanced. So keep that in mind. This is just my opinion. So that's the TRN BAX. Okay, this is the Heartfield DEER. This is a single dynamic driver at 6.8. You notice it's got this very large bump that's going all the way to 1K. I want to see if I can find what was the B-Lawn that was shaped like a noodle? Was that the 01? A B-Lawn Mini. Let's go with that. There we go. I knew it. Let me change the color so you can actually see this. Give me a green. Okay. God, that's a spike. This is an example of smaller than average drivers with kind of enormous bass. The B-Lawn Mini is not a massive bass horn. The graph would indicate that it is, but it's not. The Heartfield DEER is very much the same. It's a 6.8 millimeter dynamic driver. It's very overtuned in the sub-bass, mid-bass. It doesn't correct itself until it gets to the gain. It's not ideal tuning, but it's not a bass monster either. So don't confuse the set and say, I love that bling and that bass looks like that's just going to thump all night long. It actually doesn't. Like the B-Lawn Mini, it sounds like it's actually quite average, and it's impeding on the quality of the vocals because of its tuning, not because it's in its loud volume, but because where it's putting the emphasis on its tuning on the frequency scale. When you blow this up this much and you don't have any correction after the mid bass or coming into the mids, it will lift and put a husk on vocals that will seem unnatural, or it should. It does to me. It'll make basses sound more up front in really everything that you listen to, not in a domineering way, just in a tuning way. The bassist sounds ever present, even when it really shouldn't be, because the tuning is enforcing that on you, because this is an amplitude scale. It's putting this much emphasis on frequencies in this area. It's not a bass headset, though, I guess is what I'm saying. So if you look at this and you think that looks like bling, I like bass, I'm gonna be a rapper, like Tupac over there. Yeah, no, it's not gonna happen like that. It's gonna sound quite average to less, but it's going to give you the penalty of having somewhat poor tuning. Listening to stuff like Big Boy Kill Jill, the drop is good. It's not anything like the graph would indicate. The Belon Mini also, like that little teeny thing stuck in your ear like a noodle, that's not a hammerhead at all. And you can think, well, it's got a really small driver. 6.8, I don't know what to say. This is not a bass headset. Let me go ahead and take out the Belon Mini. This has got a little spike right at 5K. It's all of this work. Let's look at this again for a second. What an absolutely stunning set. That might not be your thing, but in the hand, I think it's quite beautiful. If that was tuned correctly, I would put a nice cable on that, and that would be my like just over the top bling set. I could totally dig this. This is a set that went 9 out of 10 steps. And the one step they messed up was the most important, which is the tuning. I love the look. The body and shell is high quality. It's metal anyway. You're not going to drop it and break it. The bling is I love it. It's so cool. But this is an earphone. It's for playing music, and I don't think it does that great, because it does what anything that's emphasized this much in the low frequency does, whether it's a headphone or earphone. It does not work for rock and roll. It doesn't work for hip hop. Something like the Focus EDM does have a proper driver that does do. That's just a beast. That hammers hard. That's a legit bass headset. I guess that's a poor example. This looks like it would be a bass headset, though it's not. I wish it was tuned better, because I would love to put it on my desk. It's just a beauty. But we're not here for looks. We're here for sound, and they didn't get that most important step correct, and that is the Heartfield DEER. Hopefully they maybe come up with, keep the shell and revise this. You're so close. Sometimes people watch my videos and get a hint, and so let me give a hint to Heartfield. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know what I'm saying? Don't just chuck the whole thing out. You got a great shell. It looks nice in quality. The cable is average, but people got their own extra cables. Adjust the tuning for this set. That looks like a big enough shell to put a larger driver. Did you consider maybe a high quality driver? Maybe ask for a little bit more money. There's a market for people that want really good dynamic drivers. This is not one of those. It looks like one, though. We're not here to talk about that, so I'll go ahead and let that go. I feel frustration sometimes, and this would be one of the sets that frustrates me. They were that close. They were so close. And I'm out.